Bridging the Gender Divide, Promoting Equitable Treatment Through Awareness and Policy. Abstract. This article examines research on gender differences in workplace experiences and treatment. A study by Anthropic found that while men and women behave similarly based on sensor data, women often feel they have to work harder and have their ideas scrutinized more. The article then discusses strategies for organizational leaders to promote gender equality. It recommends unconscious bias awareness training to address implicit biases that systematically disadvantage women. Establishing family-friendly policies and pay transparency can help structure equitable systems. Creating avenues for bias, reporting, and non-retaliation investigations demonstrates leadership commitment. Together, these multifaceted efforts from both leaders and employees are needed to change deeply entrenched biases over time. Dismantling gender-based disparities represents an important step toward organizational fairness and allows all individuals to maximize their potential regardless of gender. A recent study by Anthropic found that while men and women behave similarly in the workplace based on sensor data, they experience very different treatment. This disparity highlights the need for organizational leaders to promote gender equality through awareness training and proper policy implementation. When employees are not treated equitably based on gender, it undermines an inclusive culture and can negatively impact engagement, performance, and retention. However, with concerted efforts to understand implicit biases and establish clear guidelines, leaders can help bridge the divide and foster a more just environment for all. Today we will examine key findings from the Anthropic research and their implications. It will then discuss specific strategies leaders can employ, supported by relevant literature to promote gender parity at their organizations. Research insights on gender differences in treatment. The Anthropic study analyzed sensor data from over 350 professionals across various industries in order to objectively measure workplace behaviors. Researchers found that when looking solely at movement patterns and time spent on tasks, men and women performed remarkably similarly. However, qualitative feedback surveys revealed that women often felt they had to work harder to be heard, and that their ideas faced more scrutiny. Men also reported receiving more acknowledgement and developmental opportunities compared to equally qualified women coworkers. These findings are consistent with a wealth of other research on unconscious gender bias. One study had participants review resumes that were identical, aside from the name being either male or female. Evaluators consistently rated male applicants as more competent and hireable than female applicants. Other research found both men and women viewed competent leaders in stereotypically masculine terms and associated leadership with masculinity in general. Such systemic biases naturally disadvantage women in areas like performance evaluation, career advancement, and compensation. Awareness training to address unconscious biases. The first critical step for leaders is bringing unconscious biases to light through targeted awareness training. Research shows that confronting hidden prejudices is key, yet most people tend not to recognize their own. Training sessions should explain implicit social cognition and how even well-intentioned individuals develop automatic associations outside of conscious awareness or control. Present empirical evidence on commonly held biases related to gender, race, age, disability status, and other social categories using real study results. Facilitate interactive exercises where participants assess their own implicit biases through tests and reflect on how preconceptions may influence work decisions. Provide strategies for recognizing and correcting for biases, like ensuring diverse input in reviews, focusing on objective performance metrics, and rotating evaluators. For example, an automotive manufacturer held mandatory bias literacy webcasts where leaders learned to spot blind spots and committed to fair reviews. Employees later reported feeling heard and confident inappropriate factors were not considered in career discussions. Ongoing training sustains awareness of evolving biases and maintains an inclusive culture. Family-friendly policies support gender equality, while bias training addresses unconscious behaviors. Establishing supportive policies helps structure workplace systems to counter built-in assumptions. Research links implementation of family-friendly benefits like paid family leave, flex time, and backup childcare to higher retention and promotion rates for women. For instance, a major tech firm found offering 6 weeks of fully paid parental leave increased the share of women in high-level roles by 50% within 2 years. Family-friendly policies should apply equally to all genders and caregivers. Leaders can communicate their importance through top-down behavioral modeling, like men actively taking advantage of leave opportunities. HR also plays a role, ensuring policy education reaches all groups and conducting periodic reviews to identify coverage gaps. This dual emphasis on changing mindsets, as well as formalizing equitable standards, creates an environment where both men and women can balance work and family responsibilities. Equitable compensation through transparent reviews. Pay transparency further shores up fairness by removing the potential for biased judgment to impact financial outcomes unknown to employees. Research finds that without transparency, women remain unaware of salary discrepancies and companies struggle to resolve wage gaps. However, simply providing salary ranges up front or instituting annual compensation discussions where employees can review appropriate market data for their role and performance level helps remedy this issue. For instance, a global technology firm instituted mandatory annual one-on-ones with HR partners focused solely on compensation. Any disparities were justified with market research, and adjustments made as needed to achieve internal equity. A university also publishes salary bands publicly for complete transparency. Such approaches eliminate reliance on subjective managers alone while empowering employees to negotiate fair pay directly. Establishing avenues for bias reporting. Finally, creating safe channels for bias reporting and non-retaliation investigations underscores leadership commitment to justice and encourages an ethical culture. Policies should outline clear, accessible processes for employees to formally log concerns anonymously. Thorough, impartial follow-ups then assess the merits of each case and determine appropriate remedies or education needs. For example, following multiple reports of unequal treatment, a financial services company established an ombudsperson role outside standard reporting lines. Now any employee, from entry-level to C-suite, can confidentially discuss biased conduct, witnessed without fear of reprisal. Anonymous annual climate surveys also gauge perceptions of fairness over time. Combined, these mechanisms maintain two-way accountability between staff and leaders around upholding inclusion values. Conclusion: while implicit biases negatively impact all marginalized groups, dismantling gender-based disparities represents a significant step toward organizational fairness. However, changing deeply entrenched systems requires intentional, multifaceted efforts from leaders as well as employees. The strategies discussed lay the necessary groundwork but must continually evolve to address evolving prejudices. Overall, promoting equitable treatment of men and women through awareness, policy, transparency, and accountability cultivates high performance by allowing every individual to maximize their potential regardless of personal attributes. With sustained commitment, all industries can achieve this vision of true diversity, equity, and inclusion.